everybody. Today we are going to be talking about assessing publication metrics for authors and conferences via Google Scholar. This knowledge applies to you if you're looking at how to select an impactful venue, knowing how impactful an author is, or potentially looking at how impactful a piece of work is. There are naturally caveats here. The metrics I'm about to present are not perfect, but they can be taken as guidelines when you're doing research, writing a paper, or selecting a venue. A first caveat I would add is that these metrics vary a lot by research area. So specific scores will be maybe really good in some areas or really bad in other areas. And this has to do with the fact that some areas don't encourage as much publication as others, or just do not have as much publication as others. In those areas that have less publication, great works will naturally be less cited, just because there's not as much literature to cite them. A second caveat I would add is that people or venues that have been around for a while typically have better metrics, especially if you're talking about just straight up citation metrics. Citation counts that are legitimate only increase over time, they never decrease. Or I guess they can remain constant over time too. A third caveat is that venue quality matters, so even poor work at good venues will be over-recognized. And then conversely, good work at poor venues will be under-recognized. This also applies to, as a final caveat, institutions. People that are with better institutions will typically get more cited, all things being equal. Now, let's dive into some of these metrics. To start with, let's look up an author that we're all fairly familiar with, Albert Einstein. We'll click the first Google Scholar link. And what we can see here is that there are several metrics, starting with citations. We see that Albert Einstein has quite a few citations, with quite a few as well since 2019. The citations are the number of peer-reviewed articles that have cited Albert Einstein. The H-index corresponds to the largest number H, where articles have at least H citations. There is sometimes a number tacked onto this. For example, the H5 index refers to articles only published within the last 5 years. So Albert Einstein's H5 index is 0. However, his H index is very high. An H index of 156 is extremely prolific, extremely difficult to achieve. And the H index can be used to evaluate both authors as well as conferences. Finally, you have the I-10 index. The I-10 index refers to the number of scholarly articles that have been cited at least 10 times. This focuses on articles with moderate impact, where 10 is used as sort of a generic cutoff. Usually this works pretty well to rank authors. However, this does vary by discipline quite a bit, and it does overlook some very high impact work. For example, this EPR paradox paper with over 25,000 citations is treated as any other paper that has 10 or more citations within the I-10 index. So you have cases where, say, somebody might lead a lab that publishes a ton of just really decent but fairly mediocre articles with nothing specifically groundbreaking that has a very, very large I-10 index. Now, when looking at some of the citations, Google Scholar has some great features here. So first, we can look at citation counts over time, since the author or the journal or whatever was indexed in Google Scholar. We see that for Einstein, there's a general upward trend. We can then look at individual articles. So we can zoom in on this article, see how the citation counts have gone over the various years. And then we can also look at who's citing the article and rank by either relevance or by date. A custom date range, we can apply that over here. We can create email alerts for the article, or we can even search within citing articles. So if there's something specifically within the articles that cite the EPR paradox paper that we want to search for, we can check this box and then we can search for that up in the Google Scholar menu. Now let's talk about how to use Google Scholar to select conferences or venues for your respective area of research. So for this, you can go to the three bars up here on the left, click on Metrics, click View All, and then on Categories, we can determine what type of conference or what type of venue or what type of journal you want to look up. Artificial intelligence has been a hot topic lately, so let's do that. Right? It's probably going to be under engineering and computer science, and then we can look at subcategories. Ah, perfect. Artificial intelligence. Click that. And we see here that we have a list of artificial intelligence publications sorted by H5 index. Now, we've talked about H5 index, and it applies just the same way to a conference as it does to an author. The 5 here refers to the 5 years. So over the past 5 years, how many papers submitted to that conference have achieved at least that number of citations? And the H5 index here for the Neural Information Processing Systems Conference is 337. We see here that there's also another metric, the H5 median. What this refers to is out of those 337 cited works, or out of those 337 works that contribute to the H index, what is the median number of citations of those works? And in this case, it's 614. Now, I would note that we can click on this link here under the H5 index, and we can see some of the papers here that have been highly cited from greatest to least in terms of the number of citations. Just as in the author view, we can click cited by, look who's cited them, who's doing similar research. We can also click on the paper itself or the publication itself, and we can take a look at the publication, including the raw text. For example, here we could click the paper if we want to read this paper. So that's how you can use Google Scholar to select conferences or journals or other venues in your respective research area. Anyway, I hope this presentation was helpful. If it was, please like and subscribe and leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Have a good one.